today.
Yes, we
so
are.
it's interesting. It's going to be climate packed right there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so
But
much.
like I said earlier, bridging the skill gap, why Nigeria needs more young women leading the energy transition. As you already know, climate change is no longer a distant environmental concern discussed only in international conferences. It is increasingly shaping the realities of life across Nigeria and other parts of the world. From devastating floods that have displaced thousands of families to prolonged drought affecting food production, rising temperatures, environmental degradation, desertification in the north, coastal erosion in the south, and growing threats to livelihoods nationwide. Now, the climate crisis is now an economic, social, and environmental challenge. Yet, amid these challenges lies a significant opportunity. Globally, the transition towards a low-carbon economy is creating millions of jobs in renewable energy, climate-smart agriculture, sustainable transportation, green construction, waste management, environmental and technological factors, with emerging sectors also. Experts also have estimated that the green economy could become one of the largest sources of employment in the coming decades. However, the question now remains about who will benefit from these opportunities and whether developing countries like Nigeria are adequately preparing their young population to participate. Of particular concern, rather, is the persistent gender gap within science, technology, engineering, environment, and energy sectors. Despite this, it disproportionately affected by climate-related challenges, women remain underrepresented in many of the industries driving climate solutions. This exclusion raises critical questions about equity, innovation, and sustainable development. Can Africa achieve its climate goals without intentionally investing in young women? Are education institutions producing the skills needed for the green economy and is the country's energy transition creating opportunities that are accessible to women and girls? And the roles, what should government and the private and civil society organizations and development partners play in closing these green gaps? To help us discuss all these issues and get into these important issues, a distinguished development practitioner and climate advocate. Our guest today is Faith Caminos, Director of Operations and Strategy at the By the Becky Initiative, a respected non-governmental organization at the forefront of advancing United Nations Sustainable Development Goals with strong focus on climate change, climate action, environmental sustainability, youth empowerment, gender inclusion, and sustainable development. That's what we'll be discussing on today's edition. And for some of you who already follow, we have that partnership with the By the Becky Initiative each time we're discussing climate issues. So it's good to have you join us.
Thank you so much.
Herself is a regular here on the show. Thank you once again.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Yes. Now, before we get into the fellowship and what the By the Becky Initiative is doing, I guess you will just give us an idea as to where you think Africa is going. Are you excited or are you a bit despondent about the efforts governments across Africa have been doing to tackle these challenges, especially as it affects women and women's inclusion in policy making and implementation?
I would say we are making giant strides. There used to be issues around the government not taking initiative on climate change, but that has really started to make improvements. Now, I cannot say on the global scale how it affects as it relates to Nigeria now, because we produce just 4% of the global carbon emission and we suffer majority of the issues related to it. However, in Nigeria, surprisingly, this year we had our president come out and say that they are putting out some billions of naira to help transition Nigeria and Africa into climate and green job opportunities. Now, that was tagged the National Climate Change Fund. This fund is supposed to help organizations, non-for-profits, small-scale businesses transition into sustainable practices in their space, ensuring that climate change is now achievable and accessible to the most basic people in Nigeria. Now, even though that has been nationally announced, we are yet to see that implemented, which is one thing that our organization is trying to see happen. We're trying to ensure that we push for the implementation of this, and then not just pushing for it, but get every stakeholder, especially the women and girls who are the forefront or the most vulnerable parties in this issue, to participate in it. So yes, we are making giant strides, but we will definitely do better, and we want to help drive that change.
So, our concern this morning is on young women. And so Nigeria is gradually having a transition into the green energy. We've mentioned a whole lot of them. It includes the solar systems, installations, battery fixings, in fact, climate data analysis, name them. And it looks as though the women world are not actually brought in. So let's hear your thoughts on the green skill gap now as it concerns the young women, and why are they actually underrepresented in that particular sector? Technical energy roles and the way it is actually, as far as women are concerned, compared to men.
Okay, so women have suffered a lot of bias when it comes to roles that they can hold in society, which is why one of the SDG goals is, gender equality, meaning that we should give every human being equal opportunity. Now, when it comes to the climate change space, one of the things is the kind of traditional roles that used to exist when it comes to green jobs were things like solar installation. Now, they used to believe that for solar installation, they have to climb the roof. So why are you sending a woman to climb the roof? However, they forget that climbing the roof might be easier than going to the farm, cutting down a trunk of tree, breaking it down into little bits that these women take to their homes for firewood. Now, they sometimes say, oh, because that one is up there, it's for the men, and this one is down here, so it's for the women. Right? They just have to, it's because they relate the roles that women can hold directly to its place in the family, its place in raising children and running a home. When you say solar installation, and they don't believe that, how does that take care of a home? How does that cater for the children in the house? So one of the issues we are facing is bias in who should hold what role and who should have what position. Now, there is a lot of opportunity for women now in this space because, just like you mentioned, climate data analytics, the kind of opportunities that are now available in climate change has really changed. For example, there used to be this time where we had a lot of, everything was climate, was tech, right? We had things around tech jobs, data analysis, tech for development in terms of web development. Now, that was a wave. But in the coming decade, the wave will be climate jobs, because even these days now, people or developers are being taught to create reusable codes. Now, every time a line of code is being thrown out in the system, it creates energy. And that energy it burns the available resources there, so servers can burn and all of that. Now, if they are already teaching them how to create reusable codes, you see that the opportunity in green jobs is not just until you go to the farm.
Exactly.
It's also in the space, in every space. So women have more opportunities now to participate more than they had before.
Absolutely, and that's exciting. However, we've also had the instances where STEM has not really addressed the girl child, sort of. We still have the stereotype within Africa where it's like, oh, you're talking about mathematics and science and all of that, and tech, give it to the boys, you know. Has that really affected women thriving in green jobs and the jobs of the future?
Yes, it has. It has in a great deal, in a very big way, because like I mentioned, going to the farm to cut firewood for food, that is a job, because if that wood was being cut down for paper, they would say, oh, this is industrialization. However, when women go to cut it down to create the energy they use to cook the food they eat at home, they do not see it in the light of, oh, this is a technical role. Now, when men climb these roofs for solar installation, they say, this is a technical role. So the thing is, when it comes to deciding who does what, girls are always, like I said, their roles are related to how it serves the home. And in that way, the bias has existed for so long, and which is something that we are trying to change. This is what many organizations now, and very, good for Nigeria, are trying to address, getting more girls into the STEM space, getting more girls to learn things like I mentioned, reusable code rather, codes that they can use over and again, teaching them how to use the clean cook stoves to make their food rather than going to the farm to get that. Now, as much as it used to be created in certain, big organizations outside of China. Right. Now we have organizations in Nigeria run by women. For example, the Clean Technology Hub is run by women. Women are the CEO, COO, CMO, and they are creating clean cooking solutions for women to use. Now, even though that used to be the bias, now women are trying to step up. It existed, but it's being addressed now.